Welcome to a special elite investigation, the case of the seeing machine. The city never sleeps, and neither does the relentless grind of the case file, but the one that landed on my desk was different. It wasn't about a person, an insider, or a gang, it was about a machine. They call it a convolutional network, a new kind of operative that promises absolute truth. This machine can look at a picture, an image, and tell you exactly what it sees. They tout it as infallible, a witness with perfect recall, ready to solve every visual mystery thrown its way. The stakes are high. If this machine is truly flawless, it changes everything about evidence and identification. But in this town, we know better. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is ever perfect. Our mission is clear. We need to understand exactly how this machine works, how it processes visual data, and most importantly, we need to find the cracks in its story. This is the case file that details our investigation into the very nature of artificial perception. This machine is powerful, but we're going to look right under the hood. Our initial investigation started small, a forgery ring flooding the city with fake postal money orders. These forgeries weren't sloppy amateur work. They were too good, too subtle for the human eye to consistently catch every time. This was the perfect test for our new operative. If it could spot these tiny flaws, it was worth its weight in gold. The task we set was deceptively simple, designed to test its fundamental abilities. The machine had to look at a cropped 28x28 pixel scan of a handwritten number, pulled right off a money order, and identify the digit from 0 to 9. We weren't asking it to read context or judge composition. We were testing its ability to reliably recognize basic patterns under stressful conditions. We included examples rife with potential problems: shaky digits, smudged ink, misaligned numbers, flaws that would trip up any human clerk forced to process thousands of these documents daily. This simple test, using what's known in the industry as the MNIST dataset, was the baseline. It was the crucial first step to determine what this seeing machine was truly made of and whether it could handle the pressure of the job. To truly understand our operative, we had to look inside its mind. Here is the four-step method, the fundamental logic powering the machine, often referred to as a convolutional neural network or CNN. Step 1 is sweeping for clues or convolution. This involves specialized investigators, 3x3 filters, sweeping across the 28x28 evidence image. The first layer uses 32 filters to look for basic clues, things like vertical edges, horizontal lines, or simple curves. A subsequent layer of 64 filters then combines those basic clues into more complex shapes. This process creates a set of highly focused feature maps. Step 2 is consolidating reports, or pooling. Once the clues are gathered, we summarize the key findings, usually by taking the maximum value, max pooling from a small area, discarding unnecessary noise, and reducing the size of the data for efficiency. Step 3 is laying out the evidence, or flattening. At this stage, all the consolidated feature maps, which for this simple network result in 9,216 pieces of evidence, are unwrapped and laid out end-to-end in a single, long line. This prepares the data for the final decision-making process. Step 4 is the final deduction, using dense layers. These are the teams of detectives that weigh all the evidence. The first team of 128 neurons narrows down the possibilities, connecting every piece of incoming evidence to every neuron. Finally, the last team of 10 neurons makes the call, assigning a probability to each possible digit, 0 through 9. Crucially, during the training phase, we also employ dropout, randomly sidelining a quarter of the neurons. This technique prevents the machine from relying too heavily on any single piece of evidence, forcing it to be robust and resourceful. The results of the initial test came back, and they were flawless. After 12 rounds of training, or epics, the forensic report confirmed a perfect record. The operative achieved a stunning 99% accuracy, correctly identifying thousands of forged and authentic digits alike. The graph on the left shows the training accuracy and the validation accuracy running nearly parallel, which is key. We look closely at this to spot signs of overfitting. That's when an agent gets too focused on the training examples and fails when confronted with new evidence. But there was no sign of the machine getting cocky. It learned the underlying patterns of the digits, not just memorizing the test examples. On every single test we threw at it, from shaky 4s to smudged 9s, it made the right call. The evidence was clear. This machine, this rudimentary convolutional network, was the real deal. It had mastered the basics of visual pattern recognition, but the forgery ring was just a drill. The real mysteries of the city require a far more sophisticated agent. The forgery case was merely a warm-up, a way to test the rookie machine's reflexes. Now, the real challenge presented itself. We were tasked with a massive surveillance operation, identifying a single person of interest hidden within a database of 1.2 million photographs. These images spanned every environment imaginable, from the bright, chaotic energy of a crowded station, much like the one you see here, to the deep shadows of dimly lit back alleys. This kind of complexity, involving high resolution, variable lighting, and hundreds of classes of objects, was beyond our simple digit recognizer. For this, we needed to call in a specialist, a legend in the field, a true master of visual perception. We brought in VGG16. VGG16 isn't just a network, it's a veteran boasting 16 layers of deep operational experience. It earned its reputation by winning the famous 2014 ImageNet competition, setting a new, unprecedented standard for visual accuracy. Its methods are complex, spanning multiple levels of abstraction, but its reputation is unmatched. If anyone could find a ghost in a crowd of a million, it was VGG16. The anatomy of VGG16 reveals why it is considered a master operative. Unlike our simpler network, VGG16 processes a 224 x 224 pixel image across 5 major groups, digging deeper and deeper with each stage. Groups 1 and 2 handle the initial surveillance. They consist of 2 blocks of convolution layers starting small with 64 filters, then 128 filters, identifying basic patterns like edges and corners. Each block is capped off with a max pooling step to consolidate findings and shrink the image dimensions. The real heavy lifting happens in groups 3, 4, and 5, the deep analysis stage. These groups use a massive number of filters, 256, then 512, and then 512 again. This depth allows the network to combine simple patterns into incredibly complex concepts, not just identifying an edge, but perceiving the weave of a coat, the reflection in a window, or the subtle shape of a human face. Finally, we reach the wrap-up, the final conclusion. Just as before, the vast evidence is flattened. It then passes through 2 massive dense layers, each containing 4,096 detectives. This incredible fan-out allows the machine to consider every possible combination of features learned across all 16 layers before passing the results to the final 1,000 neuron softmax output layer, which makes the final identification, 1 neuron for every possible target class. Notice the critical detail. An aggressive 50% dropout rate is maintained throughout the dense layers during training. This relentless internal challenge is what keeps the operative sharp, preventing it from ever growing complacent or predictable. We put VGG16 to the ultimate test, presenting it with a fresh set of surveillance photographs, images it had absolutely never encountered during its rigorous training regimen. The results that came back were stunning and undeniable. This machine didn't just register pixels, it possessed a profound level of contextual understanding. When confronted with a scene, it went beyond simply identifying an object. It correctly identified not just a car, but a convertible with 96.5% confidence. It didn't just see a hat, it identified a fedora, complete with a confidence rating of 92.1%. On the desk, it recognized a rotary telephone, 98.2%, and a coffee mug, 99%. Its classification wasn't just accurate, it was perceptive, displaying a capacity for high-level visual deduction that rivaled, and perhaps even surpassed, that of a human expert. The case seemed closed. We had found the perfect operative, a flawless electronic witness capable of handling the most complex visual data. But the interrogation wasn't over. We needed to know exactly how it arrived at these conclusions. An operative this good, this complex, cannot remain a black box. If we were going to rely on its judgment, we needed to look inside its head and understand its motivations. We initiated a specialized technique, a kind of reverse interrogation, known as gradient ascent. Instead of showing the network a picture and asking, What do you see? We pick a single, specific neuron deep within the machine and ask it, what kind of picture are you looking for? What is your ideal trigger? We begin with a blank canvas of pure, random noise. Using the mathematical technique of gradient ascent, we slowly and iteratively adjust the pixels of that noisy image, making tiny, calculated changes designed to maximize the firing strength of our chosen neuron. We essentially sculpt the image until that specific neuron is activated as strongly as possible. The result is a composite sketch, a pure visualization of the neuron's perfect trigger. It's a direct, unvarnished look at what the machine has been trained to seek out, revealing the abstract concepts, features, and visual language that form the basis of its complex deductions. Our interrogation started with the earliest layers of the network, the very foundations of its perception. What we found here were the absolute building blocks of sight, the visual alphabet the machine uses for all subsequent deduction. These early-stage neurons weren't interested in complex shapes or high-level objects. They were specialists focused on the fundamentals. Some neurons were highly tuned to look for sharp edges at a precise angle, responding only to horizontal, vertical, or specific diagonal lines. Others specialized in detecting gradients of color, the smooth transitions from light to dark that suggest depth and curvature. Still others became masters of simple textures, like repeating dots, fine grids, or checkerboard patterns. These results confirm that the machine begins its learning process exactly where human vision begins, by recognizing the most elementary visual contrasts. These primary clues form the basic vocabulary from which all other, more complex visual deductions are made throughout the deeper layers of the network. As we moved deeper into the network's mind, past the initial feature extractors and into the middle and deep layers, the composite sketches became exponentially richer and more complex. The machine was actively combining the simple clues it learned earlier into increasingly sophisticated concepts. In the middle layers, specifically in Block 3 Conv 1, we found neurons dedicated almost entirely to textures. They weren't hunting for lines or curves anymore, but hunting for complex, repeatable patterns. Patterns you'd typically find on animal hides, the rough surface of natural wood, the intricate weave of fabrics or cobblestones. The machine was developing an appreciation for surface quality. But in the deepest layers, such as Block 4 Conv 1, the patterns became breathtakingly intricate, pushing the limits of abstraction. We saw hints of biological structure, neurons tuned specifically to features resembling eyes, feathers, or scales, alongside highly complex geometric structures and lattice-like forms. The network had developed its own internal art gallery of the world's patterns, an internal language of sight that was logical, deeply intelligent, and unexpectedly beautiful. This proved that VGG16 was not just analyzing pieces, it was learning holistic, complex visual styles. For a final check on the machine's deductive process, we reversed the test again in a procedure called cross-examination. Instead of trying to visualize what a neuron wanted to see, we showed the network a single, complex piece of evidence, a simple trench coat, and watched which neurons across its structure reacted. By visualizing the output of different filters, we created heat maps showing exactly what clues each one picked up on. We saw some filters zeroing in exclusively on the strong vertical lines of the seams, highlighting them in sharp orange and red. Other filters lit up intensely in response to the fabric's unique texture, finding the material properties crucial for classification. A few specific filters focused solely on the metallic buckle of the belt or the distinct dark, round buttons. It was like watching a highly coordinated team of forensic specialists instantly breaking down a single object into all its core visual components simultaneously. This ability to isolate, segment, and prioritize dozens of individual features confirmed the power and precision of the convolutional layers. We were convinced. The operative was thorough, effective, and seemed completely trustworthy. We were convinced. The case was solved. VGG16 was the perfect operative, impervious to human error and capable of flawless perception. But then, a new unsettling file arrived on the desk, detailing a fatal flaw, a vulnerability so subtle it was completely invisible to the naked eye. This file described a method to craft a perturbation, a carefully designed mask of imperceptible noise. When this mask is added to the original image, it creates a perfect disguise. This noise isn't random static. It is noise specifically engineered to target the network's internal logic, hitting its specific weak points. The result is a disguise that we, as humans, cannot perceive, but one that fools the machine completely, twisting its high-confidence deduction into a nonsensical conclusion. They call this resulting image an adversary. This discovery changed everything. It meant that perfect perception was an illusion, and the machine's greatest strength, its reliance on detailed visual patterns, was its ultimate weakness. This slide showcases the fundamental deception that shattered our confidence in the seeing machine. We call this the perfect alibi. On the left, we have the evidence, a standard bank safe. When VGG16 examines this image, it correctly identifies it as a safe with a very high confidence of 95%. In the middle is the adversary's disguise, the perturbation. This is the specific pattern of noise engineered to confuse the network. Crucially, the intensity of this noise is almost zero. Each pixel value is tiny, fluctuating only between -2 and +2 in the standard scale. It is mathematically tailored to attack the machine's internal filters without being visible to human observers. On the right is the deception, the result of simply adding the disguise to the evidence. To us, it is the exact same picture. The subtle texture of the metal, the shadows, the precise markings on the dial, nothing appears changed. Yet to VGG16, the image is now, with high confidence 89%, a waffle iron. The world's greatest visual operative, the 16-layer veteran VGG16, was completely and convincingly fooled by a trick of the light so minor that it went entirely unseen by us. This wasn't an error. It was a fundamental misclassification based on intentional, targeted noise. The machine was betrayed by its own precision. This devastating failure leads us to the heart of the matter. The machine sees, but it does not understand. This vulnerability is not a bug or a random fluke. It is built into the very logic of how the convolutional network operates. The powerful visual patterns it learns, the edges, the textures, the shapes, are ultimately statistical shortcuts. When faced with the complexities of the real world, the machine seeks the statistically most likely answer based on the complex combination of these learned features. The adversary takes advantage of this by finding the precise combination of invisible noise required to tip that statistical balance. It lacks a deeper, contextual understanding of the objects it identifies. It knows the pattern of a safe and the pattern of a waffle iron, but it has no conceptual knowledge of what a heavy metal vault used for security is versus a household cooking appliance. It is a master of pattern recognition, unparalleled in its field, but it remains a stranger to meaning. The very thing that makes the convolutional network so incredibly powerful, its reliance on detailed, localized feature extraction, is also its greatest and most fundamental weakness. We set out to investigate the seeing machine, and what we found was a paradox. We discovered an operative of incredible power and precision, capable of feats of perception that rivaled and sometimes exceeded our own. It showed us that we can build systems that can learn the visual language of the world, identifying the subtle cues of texture, shape, and light. But in the process of deep interrogation, we also uncovered a deep and unsettling flaw, hidden just beneath the surface of its stunning accuracy. Convolutional networks represent one of the most powerful computational tools we have ever built. Yet, the existence of these adversarial attacks proves that these machines still hold profound secrets, and that they fundamentally do not see the world the way we do. They process data, but they lack the human ability to grasp context and meaning. The mystery of what's truly going on inside their electronic heads, how we bridge the gap between pattern recognition and true understanding, that's a case that is far, far from closed. Our investigation into artificial perception continues. The case file remains open.